We started to look at some nonprofits are the thin blue line between the collapse of society and chaos, because where other peoples are running from these problems, nonprofits are running toward them.
Hey, Summit Chasers, you are listening to Voices of Impact, the podcast where you broaden your awareness to the various issues across the globe, learn about the amazing people who are working to solve them, and get inspired to chase your own summit with actionable strategies. It starts right now. Hello, everybody. My name is Audrina Blackburn, your host of Voices of Impact, and today I am with Steve Robinson, founder of the Supply Chain Project. I'm so happy to have you here and excited to get into this conversation with you.
Hello, Audrina. How are you today?
Doing well. All right, to kick us off, tell me a little bit about who you are, your background, and the Supply Chain Project.
Wow, yeah, Audrina, I'm a supply chain guy. I've done nothing but supply chain, for most of my career. But I've just had a front row seat to corporate supply chains, multinational. My first career was in transportation, working for companies like UPS and some domestic transportation companies. And then I went to Walmart, and I had an opportunity to see the amazing growth at Walmart. Ran transportation there. I was the head of global supply chain for Walmart
Wow.
at a really interesting time. We had more containers on the ocean than the U.S. government. Just a massive, massive,
Wow.
platform. Later in my career, I became, vice president of global logistics for Starbucks, and I ran the Starbucks Center of Supply Chain Excellence. We had 70% market share, worldwide. So I've, really had sort of a front row seat at how supply chains work massively. But in 2016, I came to Silicon Valley at a little bitty startup, tiny little company called Gobble, and we were in the meal kit space, and we were just this passionate group of people making, kind of food. But we wanted our food to get to food deserts and other places. And so we started to kind of work on, how would that happen, and how do we get food to inner city locations? We went on to win the most innovative supply chain in America. But in 2016, I came face to face with, how homeless shelters prepare and distribute food, and the challenges here working with the Salvation Army here in the city of San Francisco. I live in California, Adrena, where we've got 8% of the U.S. population, but 40% of the homeless
Wow.
population in the U.S. And so
Yeah.
it's a massive problem. So the supply chain projects was really spawned out of my front row seat to see just how difficult it was, for someone who, for whatever reason, had fallen through the cracks of society to receive the things that I feel are the basic human needs, and that people are imbued with just certain basic rights. And in a world where 40% of the world's food is wasted, in a world where here in the US we had $734 billion of e-commerce returns last year, it is almost inconceivable that we can't figure out the human supply chain and move some of that waste and some of that amazing overabundance, into the hands of people that need it the most. So,
Right.
we started to look at some, nonprofits are the thin blue line between the collapse of society and chaos, because where other peoples are running from these problems, nonprofits are running toward them. We work with those nonprofits. We do capability building for nonprofits. If they're distributing food, medical equipment, medical supplies, clothing, shelter, pharmaceuticals, it's a distribution intense problem. And you know what the secret is? Their challenge is harder than the distribution challenges of Amazon and Apple and Walmart and Starbucks. It's twice as hard. And so they need twice as much help, and that's what we do.
That's incredible. You talked about so much that I'm like, okay, we can dive into this, we can dive into that, we can dive into this. So I think where I want to get us started is your experience in these massive companies. Like Walmart and Starbucks are two of, I think, the biggest names probably worldwide. And you got an inside look into how they function. So, what did you take from that to then put into your nonprofit to kind of bring some of the capabilities or the technology or whatever it might be that you saw work so effectively in those spaces now into the nonprofit space?
Yeah, I would tell you that just working with great leaders and great vision, those two companies had, a similar view, in how they understood their responsibilities to be good citizens in the community. At Walmart, the entire thesis was focused around kind of the Walmart customer, and the rest of the organization was the buying group and the delivery group for the needs of that organization. I remember sitting in a meeting with leadership, and they said our customer could be a single mother with 3 kids, and she has $500. She's got to go to a Walmart store, buy back to school clothes, health and beauty aids, food, and some other necessities, and still walk out with a few nickels in her purse. And that's who our customer is, and that's our mission, to make sure that we can maintain and raise that family standard of living. At Starbucks, there was many lectures about being a profitable company, but doing business through the lens of humanity. And so even today, both of these businesses and their stores are they're good citizens, because they both believed that whether you were, homeless, or whether you, in fact, you were affluent, that there was a basic level of respect and access to a certain lifestyle that every human deserved. And so these are some of the biggest businesses on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, people talk about the profit motive, but those companies actually walk the talk. So, I learned that that there's a tremendous amount of resource, that there's a tremendous amount of waste, and it is simply the orientation of the leadership to make a place for everyone at the table. And so, that's really it. But I also learned, just how difficult it is to be in a distribution intense business,
Mm-hmm.
and what is the base set of capabilities that organizations need if they're going to serve the public every day, everywhere, and effectively meet the public where they are.
Yeah. I was not expecting that answer. And I think that it is such a beautiful answer because it goes to show that people are everything. And if you can lean into that and understand your vision and your mission and work to serve them, that's at the end of the day, I think one of the most important things. I totally thought that you were going to go along the lines of like, I don't know, efficiency and project management or something along those lines, or like technology that you saw. But the fact that you took it down to the leadership and vision, which I do believe is so, so core in building a business that is going to be successful, I thought was so cool. And like I said, just unexpected for me in your background. So transitioning into the supply chain project, what has been the biggest hurdle? Because I know that nonprofits have to run so, so lean. They are not your Walmarts, they're not your Starbuckses. What was the biggest challenge that you saw for the nonprofits? Like you said, they're the ones who are running headfirst into these spaces and into these challenges. So yeah, what was that you saw when creating this supply chain that was going to be your biggest hurdle?
Yeah, there were several. There were several. The number one challenge that we saw was providing access to transportation on
Mm.
demand. In the for-profit world, it's pretty predictable. Your suppliers ship on Monday, and you get your product on Tuesday, and your customers, kind of come to the store or whatever it is pretty predictably. And so what I found is that all of the traditional supply chain approaches that work for our for-profit businesses don't work for nonprofits.
Yeah.
They don't have the luxury of knowing who their customer is, or where their customer is going to be, how many
Yep.
customers. They don't have the luxury of knowing where their supply is going to be. Guess what? The supply is whatever we can get, whenever we can get it,
Exactly.
wherever we can get it from.
Yep.
And that we call that supply variability and demand variability. And most of the models that we used in these, in these for-profit businesses were based on demand that we create in our advertising, and we were able to kind of steer people toward the products and services. But when you're actually responding, to the human need, it's a different problem. The other side is the people that have to be prepared for the everyday disaster.
Yeah.
And they don't get a siren or weather, the same kind of reports. So I found that the first thing is that there's it's so unpredictable that they don't know. They have no way to determine, kind of what they need. The second thing was, how to get it. First, let me tell you, everything about being a nonprofit is difficult. We're focusing on a certain subset of all nonprofits that are doing the humanitarian work.
Okay.
There are amazing nonprofits that save the whales. There are great nonprofits cleaning up the ocean. Some are aggressively attacking climate change. We're saving the people. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is like some of the hardest work. You know what I found to be like one of the top 3 problems?
What's that?
It is getting product donated. When there's a disaster, nonprofits struggle with the disaster after the disaster. Well, what is that? We hear there's a disaster and you need stuff. And now people ship you stuff. Stuff that you need. You have nowhere to store it. You have to touch it to see kind of what it is. Sometimes you have to remove the labels because the manufacturer doesn't know. So when you raise your hand for need, then you get, thousands of pounds and full truckloads of stuff that you don't need, that you can never use, that people are just dumping to kind of get rid of it. And now you're a little bitty nonprofit with not a lot of space and not a lot of money and time. And now you've got a problem because somehow, the city says, get rid of all that stuff that's in that parking lot or, whatever. So that's a problem that they get, not always being able to regulate the giving. And most tell you they would prefer dollars that they can actually use to buy the stuff that they really need and buy it locally, so they don't have to manage transportation from the good people in South Dakota that want to ship it to Southern California.
Right. I actually was just speaking to somebody this week. She's going to be on the podcast in a few weeks, and she is based in Canada and collects school supplies for kids in Africa. And she actually struggled with getting people to donate money. They were like, I would rather give you the product so that I know like this is what is being delivered. But now she has to figure out how to get stuff from Canada to Africa. And for a long time, she was doing things like in her suitcase and just taking as much luggage as she possibly could. And I'm like, that's tough. So it's like, how do you balance getting people to switch to donating the dollars so that you can, because she and I talked about like, well, can you purchase locally and deliver it that way? That might make it a little bit easier. And she's like, yeah, no, I can, but I've struggled to get the money to come in and let me do that rather than people donating the goods. So I think that that's super interesting that you've kind of experienced that same thing and that nonprofits do run into that. What would you say is something that you've been able to take from your experience with the bigger corporations and make it fit into the nonprofit space and kind of boost that efficiency or make the process a little bit easier?
Prioritization is probably the best in the triage. Is important. The second piece is networking. Not going to market to address your market as a singular entity, but have a group of other nonprofits that together bring sort of complementary capability.
Absolutely.
And when you and some other nonprofits get together and focus on a segment in your community, that's really where power power happens. And that's, again, something that, corporations. So a lot of, again, what we're doing is when we build capability, we're giving them access to people that they ordinarily would not have, able to afford, access to, the best processes. And then, of course, we have a two-sided marketplace where those nonprofits can come and work with us, and we can marry them to our own technology or to one of our technology providers, who, typically provide technology either free or at a discount.
That's very cool. And I think that that's something that's so needed in the nonprofit space is that capability building. Because like we've talked about, like they are running things so lean. They are so mission driven and focused on their cause that I think well, I don't think they always put that first. So to be able to come in and boost that capability so that their reach is even further, I think is so powerful and something that is needed just throughout that space. Because I think a lot of times, like for-profit businesses have more access to capability building than nonprofits, when nonprofits are the ones who need it by and large the most, so that they can continue to fight their fight and solve these really big problems. I think that's incredible. Let's focus in on the human supply chain aspect, because I think that that's really interesting. So can you talk us through the concept of the human supply chain?
Every person, we know what you need: food, shelter, clothing, health and beauty aids. You need an opportunity to be on a mission, and you need purpose, right? And so, these are kind of the Maslow's, hierarchy of greater human needs has been around for over 50 years. Uh, so matching, people to that need state today in our society, in fact, in most societies, if you have a job, then you get to fulfill the lower part of Maslow's pyramid. So we have all these cultural reasons where the spread, between just earning potential and income equity has grown, and the people at the bottom now are people that 10, 20, 30 years ago would not have been facing homelessness.
Right.
But today, today they are. And so regardless of your socioeconomic status, or regardless of how you got there, you still need a basic level of support and sustenance, which would be, ridiculous if it weren't for the fact, again, that 40% of the world's food is wasted, and in fact, if you want to waste more food, give it to a nonprofit today. Nonprofits, without the capabilities that we're building, tend to 60 to 65% of the donated food, Audrina. It never gets to the intended mission because they don't have all the tools, they don't have all access, they can't manage cold chain without certain, facilities and technologies and support. So capability building here is just, really important.
Yeah, I know that when we initially talked, we talked a lot about the waste, and you mentioned it at the beginning. So what do you think is, and you might not know, but what do you think is the answer to all of this waste? Because I think, what did you say, $740 billion of e-commerce was returned this year? So it's like, where do we even begin?
$34 billion of e-commerce was returned.
And I think we live in an age of overconsumption for sure. And I will hold my hand up and say that I've been guilty to that in the past. My lifestyle has changed drastically in the last 6 months, probably. So I'm very much on the other end of it now, of like, we don't have a lot of space. We sold almost everything and got into a travel trailer full time. And so I got rid of so much, but it also opened my eyes to like, I don't need all of these things that I think I need. So what do you think, though, being your history, and I'm sure that you've seen waste at the companies that you've worked for, and with you being in the supply chain space, what do you think is a solve for that?
Yeah, I think that, my dad used to say, Audrina, the answer is money. Now, what's the problem? And that's been true. But I think, the answer is people. Now, what's the problem? And I mean that because, you know, there's certain things that we're not going to change, at least overnight. The consumerism is the engine that makes our economy work.
Right.
That may not change, but, you know, but for people. So we've got a provider on our network, Boundless Giving, and Ryan Jaffe and his group actually work with nonprofits, and they created this amazing circular economy. So he can go to a brand that has a lot of returns and basically says, we'll work with you and we'll create a profit sharing event for a nonprofit. We'll advertise on behalf of the nonprofit. We'll put it in a pop-up warehouse. You know how we have these pop-up Halloween stores and pop-up Christmas stores. He'll do a pop-up and we'll sell your product that people, you know, would want to buy at a deeply discounted price. The nonprofit is able to raise money. Ryan is able to kind of pay for his operation. The brand gets both the gift in kind giving tax certificate and maybe a little bit of, you know, kind of the money back on their product. And voila, we've just created, you know, a circular economy. So I'm very interested in working with, you know, Ryan to kind of scale his business because he just found a way, and that's like one of 20 different models that people are doing to reposition, you know, food and reposition clothing and bring it and put it back into you know, a place where it can fulfill its mission in the human supply chain.
Yeah. And I think that that's so important. I wish I remembered the name. I literally just found a company this week that focused on children's clothes. And they had a part of what they do is anything that you buy off of their site, when your kid outgrows it, even if it's gotten messed up, whatever, stained, you give it back to them and then they figure out how to repurpose it for the next sale. And I was like, that is so, so smart. And I just feel like we need more people doing those things because we're gonna run out of ways to get rid of things. And like the planet is already going through enough. Like we don't need to continue to just add to it all the time. So
yeah, and a lot of it is just connecting the dots. There's a lot of product out there. There's a lot of food out there. There's a lot of merchandise out there. So a lot of it is just the logistics to get, you know, the people that have the supply introduced to the people that have the demand. And that's what marketplaces like Good 360 are great at, great at that. World Vision, you know, does a more. Now is the time for nonprofits to really get sort of the spotlight. They've been doing this work for years. But again, you know, the fundraising has been a challenge, and it was a challenge before COVID. After COVID, it's even more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say has been the biggest impact on yourself after being in this space? So like working through the supply chain project, how has that impacted who you are today?
I can no longer look at any business problem or any industry or any company without trying to understand, you know, how their inputs and their outputs are affecting humanity. And with just a little bit of a pivot, they could still generate all the sales that they want and make all the profits that they want, but they can do it in a way that happens through the lens of humanity. And just how very simple and easy it is. It doesn't require artificial intelligence, but it does require AI, actual intelligence, right?
I love that.
Different kind of AI that's applied that basically says, where are we creating waste and opportunities? It could be injecting homeless people into your supply chain because they can actually, you know, help with some of your quality on the front end, looking at supply issues, or they can sort of, you know, kind of help process returns. There's just ways to deploy people, give them relevance, give them mission, and allow them to kind of earn the right to participate in different things. You know, if this was like really hard technically, where we had to go invent new technologies to do it, it would be hopeless. But the things that are going to impact the circumstance the most are business leaders that are willing to look differently at their business and do things through the lens of humanity. And then some tort reform is obviously something else that you hear about a lot when you're dealing with nonprofits. Business CEOs would donate product if they could be protected from being sued. So the challenge is that no good deed goes unpunished when you're a corporation attempting to do the right thing. And you don't have in our current tort system the protections that you need from exposing your brand, your shareholders, your employees to unwarranted risks.
I want to spread that message far and wide about what you said about business owners making like that small shift towards focusing on humanity and being able to continue to do what they do, but really help humans. And I love that message so much.
And the beauty is that there's conceivably right now a nonprofit for like everything.
Everything. Yeah.
And if we can get, like, one of the things, you go to our website, the supplychainproject.org, we say that if we can capture 1% of the transportation and logistics capacity, the excess capacity that sits here in the US right now, if we can capture 1%, it would be transformational. Years ago, I worked in Bentonville and had responsibility for the Walmart private fleet. And at that time, we corrected it, but at that time, drove about 900 million miles a year all over the US, and 37% of those miles were empty. Empty miles, driving past places that would love to have transportation support from point A to point B. Now, capture a little bit of that capacity, piggyback on top of some of those trips, it'd be amazing. Stand in the middle of Main Street, USA, with a time-lapse camera. Start about 8 o'clock in the morning and let the camera go till 3 o'clock. You'll see thousands of the little box trucks, and they're going in and out. They're making deliveries. And one box truck will make a delivery at 500 Main Street. And then 5 minutes later, somebody else will come and make a delivery at 500 Main Street. And then someone else will come and make a delivery at 501 Main Street. And you're going like, and they're all like empty, and they're just kind of all going around. And so there's more than enough capacity, there's more than enough food, more than enough clothing, more than enough merchandise. There's 92 million tons of textiles annually, and 85% ends up in landfills. So why are people without clothing wandering hopelessly and aimlessly in the streets?
Yeah. It's so frustrating when you hear those numbers. It's like, what are we doing wrong? And that's, I don't think we'll get into it today, but I do think that our systems need a lot of work. Some of those upper systems that, in my opinion, are created to keep some of the things the way that they are. And it is heart-wrenching and heartbreaking and very, very frustrating. But that's why, like, beyond grateful to people like yourselves, the other nonprofit founders that I speak to, and all the ones that I don't speak to, for going out there and trying to fight this fight, because it's so needed.
Well, we're building a community of interest and a community of practice for nonprofit supply chain capability building. I would welcome you. Share the nonprofit. It's free for nonprofits to join. They can join and they can peruse our site to find capabilities that they may need. If they don't find what they need, we have a control tower. Got an entire team in India that monitors the site all the time. So, you can, ask a question, you can talk to our chat bot, you can send me an email, but we are there to serve. And our clients are those nonprofits that are sort of standing, in the gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Answer me 2 final questions. What is the impact that you want to have made when you're gone?
I would want the nonprofits to all have access to capability, and I would want the supplychainproject.com to be that meeting place, that place where they they come to find volunteer support, technology support, support, logistical support, cold chain support. When I was a kid, if you wanted to have an impact, you thought about the Peace Corps. You join the Peace Corps, you could go off and get adventures, and it could prepare you to, for what you're going to do in your mature life. You could sample a lot of different trades and determine if you wanted to be a builder or a baker, if you wanted to work in accounting. I would want the supply chain project to offer our youth the same opportunity to come work with nonprofits and find out what you're like and find out what you're good at and allow that to drive your career. I would also say that this interconnected world of supply chain, if we can get 1% of all logistics capacity, transportation capacity, warehousing capacity, and make it available for nonprofits, that would significantly move the needle and change the world.
That's amazing. And then final question is, what summit are you currently chasing? So it's like, what's the next big goal that you're working towards?
The next big goal that we're working towards, we want to have 500, 500, and 500. We want 500 of the most impactful global nonprofits. And when I say impactful, I don't mean big. Like USAID, great organization. They have a $5 billion RFP on the streets right now just for the HIV work that they want to do on the African continent. But those small, mid-sized nonprofits that really need the capability, we're chasing 500 of those. 500 service providers that can help you with your local, regional, national, and international moves. We'd love to have 500 of those. 500 technology providers, because automation and technology, and now particularly AI, is everywhere, and you cannot accomplish your goal anymore without some technology support.
I love it. Well, absolutely best luck to you and everything that you're working on with the supply chain project. Tell everybody where they can find you and get involved.
You can see our website, thesupplychainproject.org. You can come there, and again, you can sort of find your tribe. We've got a place for everyone on the site. If you have any questions or concerns, you can actually just click a button. You can get our control tower. You can call them, SMS message them. You can talk to them on the site, or you can kind of engage with our chat bot after hours. You'll get a call in or a message back. But thesupplychainproject.org. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and we'll keep you up to date on what we're doing. But join the network and make a difference. Volunteers, consultants, nonprofits, service providers. We're building a community to strengthen the nonprofit capability worldwide.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure spending this time with you today. And again, best of luck.
Thank you, Audrina. I love the podcast, and I'm tuning in now. I saw your last episode. I'll see all the other ones because I think it rocks. It rocks. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. And that wraps up another episode of Voices of Impact. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you found value in our conversation, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more inspiring stories and actionable advice, make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Also, we would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways, so please leave us a comment below. And remember, no matter where you are on your journey, you have the power to climb higher and chase your summit. Until next time, Summit Chasers, keep pushing forward and stay inspired.